Nope. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Thursday. Let me check the streams, make sure everything's going. Going. Looks good. Looks good. Looks good. Looks good. All right. Happy Thursday. Welcome, welcome, welcome as people wander in to Dev Jobs Daily, where we broadcast Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. as a place to hang out while you're getting job applications out. Do you work in tech? Do you want to work in tech? Have you worked in tech but maybe got laid off and are looking for a job? It is not fun. There's nothing fun about that. But keeping your motivation up is one of the most challenging things. We'll have some stories about that today in the news, and we'll be looking at that and talking about that, among other things. But the first thing I want to do is let you know that this stream was brought to you by sxfreesw.com, sxfreesw.com, which is a free app for people coming to South by Southwest to find all the interesting things that are going on at South by Southwest. This is a little side project I've been working on, and it is mapping out all the interesting things going on at South by Southwest that don't cost money and don't require a badge. Some of them will allow badge people in, but they don't require a badge if you're first come first serve. South by Southwest, if you're not in Austin, Texas, if you're not in tech, is one of the largest tech conferences in the world. It happens in our fair city in March. Typically coincides with spring break. This year that is not the case for us locally, but usually it does. And it is a busy week for us in tech who live in Austin, Texas, because there's lots of things to do, but it's hard to figure out kind of where they are and when they are. And so I created this app that maps out every little thing that's going on. Click on a thing, it'll give you a little bit more info about it, when and where it is. I haven't added filtering yet, but I'm going to be doing that next. Maybe today. I've got kind of a light schedule today. I want to be able to filter by day, and then also filter by term, like film or crypto or the like. I've been putting lots of keywords in for all these events, and I'm going to add some filtering in there so that it can kind of clean up what will be several hundred events. There will be at least probably 230 events, I'm guessing, by the time the thing is all said and done. I get all the data in. The first event is March 5th, which is not technically part of the Interactive Festival. It is a South by Southwest EDU festival for educational people, and I happen to work in education, so for me that is kind of the kickoff for the South by Southwest season. And it goes through interactive and film and music. Mostly I just pay attention to interactive and EDU. Not a big music guy. I have partaken in the past. I have some friends who are musicians who had showcases at South by Southwest Music in years past, and I've gone to check them out. But music, I like what I like, and I don't really spend a whole lot of time looking for new things to like. They just kind of find me. So that's that. Come check that out. If you know anybody who's going to South by Southwest and would benefit from this free app where we take no information, no personal identifying information. Although, again, these ideas pop up. It would be good maybe if you could save favorites. If that's the case, then I probably need an email address. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's just a little side project. When I have a few minutes to work on something, I've been kind of hacking this thing out. So, well, keep an eye on it. Again, this is Dev Jobs Daily, your daily hangout for job postings and information in the tech news. Oh, we got some stories today about how hard it is to find a job these days. How about you? How long have you been out of work? How long have you been looking for a job in tech? Put it in the chat. Let's chat about it. I started doing these streams on January 1st. I'd done a couple of test streams to get the technology kind of worked out before that. But I kicked it off as one of my kind of New Year's resolutions to do a new thing, a thing that I've been thinking about for a long time, that could be beneficial to the students at the boot camp that I manage, but also could have a larger benefit to people who aren't my students. So again, if you know anybody who is in tech, who's looking for a job, and they need that sort of appointment to get up in the morning, to get some caffeine in them, to get to the job boards, to really just be consistent about getting the job applications out, this can be part of that. It's part of your routine. It's the routine. I was listening to podcasts yesterday. I was going for my daily walk around the neighborhood, and he was talking about, Peter Diamandis was talking about the power of daily routines. And I'll say that I have not been, in my 50 plus years on the planet, a big fan of routine. Don't like it. I'm a creative person who earns their living being creative, and I think that routine is the death of creativity. And Peter Diamandis and many, 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 many other people would argue that point with me, but they're all wrong. That's fine. This is America. You're free to be wrong. You're free to be wrong. So that's that. So let's get into the job trends. I get to the job trends every day by hitting Indeed and looking up the job postings in the last 24 hours. I get those postings in the last 24 hours. My focus is on the web, because that's been who our student base is primarily served. But it's also an indicator of where the industry is going in a lot of ways. That may change over time, but for the last 30 years, where the web went, so did tech, primarily, right? So it's a good indicator. So I'm tracking JavaScript positions. JavaScript is really only used on the web. That's not 100% true, but that is, 99.8% true. So when I look for these JavaScript job postings in the last 24 hours, it'll give me a snapshot of kind of trends as I track that over time. I have been tracking these numbers for over 930 days, 935 days. So coming up on 3 years, I'll be rounding the 3-year mark this year of just tracking these numbers daily and plotting them out on these graphs. So the graphs show the last 7 days, the last 6 months, and the last year. And they give us, again, directional trends. We'll see in the last 7 days it's been pretty flat. In the last 6 months, we see a slight uptick. A lot of that was post-election. We had a nice bump, and we also had a kind of a flat summer. But, up and to the right is what we want to see. In general, when you look at the job postings now, there's probably 30 to 40% more being posted now than there were in September of last year. So again, we'll take whatever wins we can in whatever shape and form they come. And then in the yearly graph, it's a slight downturn, but it'll be leveling out in the next month or so as things get a little bit better now and a little some of the heights of the spring start to roll off. But you can see again, if you look at where the numbers are now compared to a year ago, they're still up about, I don't know, maybe 10% if I were going to pull a number out of the air. So, again, we're already doing better right now than we were this time last year. Hopefully we'll see the trend that we saw last year continue going into March and April of there being a bit of a spike. Hopefully we'll see these numbers continue to do that, but also have that extra 10 or 15% bump on top of it. So now it's not time to sleep. Now it's time to get up and get those job applications out. Again, on Indeed is where I gather that information. I do it because 15 to 20% of all job postings are on Indeed, and that is a statistically significant number. In order to sort of look for trends, it has also been verified by a third party. That's not just their number that they promote. But it also has the ability to use these filters. Those filters can give us, most importantly, the last 24 hours. But they can also be more granular, and that's why I've, since the first of the year, been tracking another set of numbers, which includes all of the JavaScript jobs, not just the entry-level positions, which had been my focus for those 300 plus days. All the JavaScript jobs in the US, and we'll look since the first of the year, since January 1st, we had a nice spike coming out of the holiday season and kicking the year off, and then it's been pretty flat. The blue line here is all JavaScript jobs. That doesn't necessarily help you because you are in one specific location. So if you are looking at jobs in a city in another state and it is an in-person job, that's not one that you're likely to apply for because most people aren't going to move to another state for a job. But the remote work, you can apply for that. Again, we got a nice slight upturn there, but it's been pretty flat in the last month. We want to see that number continue to climb. Then I also tracked entry-level, mid-level, and senior level in-person jobs. The mid-level is in the red, senior is in yellow, and the entry-level is in blue here. All up and to the right, which is generally what we want to see, but not much. We want to see a little bit steeper line if we can help that. And then finally, those remote roles. There aren't as many of them, but the breakdown is similar. A lot more mid-level jobs that there are than senior and remote. I really kind of would have expected to see the senior level roles a little more prominently on the graph, because generally if you get to the senior level and you have proven that you're good at managing your time and managing often other people's time, that usually gives you a little bit more leeway to work from home. But nope, that's not the case. The numbers are not only flat but kind of dipping in the last week, which is interesting. What's your experience? Are you a mid-level, senior level? Are you trying to break in? Is this going to be your first job in tech that you're out searching for? Put that in the chat if you want, and we can talk about that. Again, I am streaming live on YouTube, Twitch, and LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you would. I am always looking to grow my network of people working in tech, living and working in, earning a living in tech. And if you happen to be in town for South by Southwest, ping me, and let's connect in real life. Talk about things. I am on LinkedIn every day, many times a day. Um, because that's where people go to look for jobs. That's where people go to look for people looking for jobs. Um, but also because they've got this nice little news feed that often has some stories in there that are pertinent to us in tech, and in particular in the job market. There was a story today about AI data centers are job deserts, which is one of those things where if you've worked in tech, especially if you've worked in back end, um, that seems like a completely obvious and dumb statement to make. Like, why is that a headline? But if you don't work in tech and you've been reading all these news stories, what people are saying is like, hey, we're building out all these data centers so that we can do data science, so we can do machine learning, so we can do artificial intelligence, and we're creating all these jobs. We're creating all these jobs. But of course, the jobs are only being created while they're building the center. In order to manage a data center, which is no more than a big empty room that's freezing cold that has lots of rack-mounted servers in them, you don't need very many people. This has never been the case. Back in the 90s, when internet connections were so slow, if you wanted to make any changes to any major updates or changes to your server, more likely that server was in the same town as you, because it was easier for you just to drive over with a portable drive, hook it up to the server with a laptop, and then move files over that way than waiting for dial-up to deliver your files. So I spent a lot of times in freezing cold data centers in the mid and late 90s. And we don't do that anymore. Everything's all remote now. But what's going on in those data centers? The same thing was going on there. Like, I'd go there at like 3 in the morning to update the website, to manage the database, to do all that stuff, because the least number of people were on the server, so there would be the least amount of interruption of service for the website. But the place was always a ghost town. There was always one guy that's like half asleep at the front desk and nobody else in there. But if you go on at 2 in the afternoon, it would be pretty much the same thing. Not very many people. Not very many people. So yeah, the good news is that we are building a lot more data centers. We're building them in different places because the proximity to energy is a key thing. Microsoft's going to build this big data centers right next to 3 Mile Island because they worked out a deal to get the cheap energy from 3 Mile Island. The same thing is true with a lot of these companies. They're co-locating data centers nearby energy producers as a way to get cheaper energy, and in the process, they're creating a lot of jobs that are kind of, construction jobs, essentially. When they do the final build out of all the stuff, there's definitely a tech. You need no more than swinging a hammer to build out a data center in terms of that. But it's a contract job. Contract is there as long as you're building it, until the new round of NVIDIA racks are out. the latest, hottest, newest, fastest um, processors are out. You don't need a whole army of people. So I'm guessing that those people who do those data centers are probably pretty nomadic. Again, that is a specialized knowledge, and they're probably paid pretty well, but they're also, kind of like guys working on the oil fields. Like when the oil dries up at this hole, you got to go find another job at some other oil well. You're just kind of moving around doing the thing. And that's not going to slow down. We're going to continue to build more and more of these things um, as AI and machine learning sort of becomes a lot more approachable and companies start doing more of that stuff in-house. We're definitely going to see more of that growth. But again, it's not the kind of business that comes in. If you put a Amazon distribution center in a small town in Texas, that's going to create a lot of jobs for the locals. This is not going to be that. This is not going to be that. If anything, it's going to be security. They're going to be hiring security guards. That is the weak link in data centers, and as data centers are proliferating all over the place, there's probably going to be people breaking in data centers to steal data. Although we haven't really seen that. That's interesting. I mean, we see it in the Mission Impossible movies, but not. I haven't heard a whole lot of stories about that happening in real life. Because there's all these, it's risky. You gotta actually leave the house. You can't be a keyboard cowboy. But the path is potentially worth it. Surprised. Okay, new article in The Atlantic. I was able to skim it this morning. Unemployment is low, but workers aren't quitting and businesses aren't hiring. What is going on? The job market is frozen. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this on the channel before. There's always this talk about, hey, unemployment is low. It's been, it hadn't been this low in a long time. Yes, but if a single mom has two jobs to keep a roof over the head of her kids and food on the table, yeah, she's employed, but it's not a career. It's not. Oftentimes, those two jobs are, gig economy jobs that. Those gig economy companies, they're hungry for people. They will snap them up. Over time, they've paid more of a living wage, but still, again, that living wage tends to be for mid-sized cities, not large cities, and that living wage tends to be for one person, not family. So we got a whole generation in the last 10 years of people who are in their 20s and 30s who have just sort of gravitated towards these gig economy jobs, but they're not building towards a career and real job, prospects. So that's been part of it. This article is a little different, though. This article kind of talks about the reasons why companies aren't putting out a lot of job applications, in part because they got burned after the Great Recession. The writer leads off talking about his younger brother who's been graduated with honors from a top private university, which normally is a bunch of open doors for somebody like that. But he put out over 500 applications with only a handful of responses, 4 interviews, and still no job. Only they didn't. Just kept at it. Things would turn around, but they didn't. Weeks and months ago, the brother still isn't finding anything. We've talked about this again too. Like, when somebody says they've been out of work for 6 months, they've been out of work for a year, they've been out of work for more than that. Um, you really got to kind of look at what you're doing, right? Um, because again, I'm seeing new job postings every day. There are definitely more people looking for those jobs than there are job postings, no doubt about it. But um, again, especially if you're trying to get that first job, it's more challenging, even if you come out of a good college, because again, colleges don't teach you job ready skills. Colleges teach you how to think and the fundamental underlying architecture of an industry, but they do not teach you the skills that you need to work a job every day. That kind of stuff is picked up on the job, right? Because there's no way they could teach job ready skills, because what does that mean? If I say I'm a full stack developer, what stack is that? What does that mean? Like, if you want to go to college and become a full stack developer, what's the backend going to be written in? It could be one of a dozen plus languages, right? So colleges aren't going to teach one because maybe that one falls out of favor. They're going to focus on the things that don't change so quickly. Um, um, so part of your job, especially if you get out of college, is to work to acquire those actual functional skills that companies need, and to build things that can prove you can do what you say you can do. Doesn't matter if you got a college degree from anywhere, this side of maybe 3 or 4 technical colleges. If you go to MIT and you do well and your grades score well, uh, that's a pretty good indicator that, at least one of the FANG companies would be interested in you and you're going to get job interviews. If you're anything less than that, if you go to, even in our town, UT, the biggest university in um, in Austin, also got a good tech program, good CS program, well known. Again, getting that diploma is generally not enough to prove that you didn't just, sleep your way through college and get just the minimum grades to graduate. People don't want that. They want to see the quality of your work, the focus that you have, whether you're continuing to learn or you're just, biding your time in college and then expecting somebody to hand you a job. Um, so if you're out for 6 months and you're not getting a whole lot of traction, if your downtime is not spent on working to acquire the skills that make you job ready, that's kind of on you. And if you're not working, building stuff, if you're waiting around for somebody to tell you what to build, you're going to have a harder time at catching somebody's eye in the job search, right? We put together our portfolio, we put together our resume, we put together our LinkedIn. All these exist to do one thing, and that is get us a phone call, right? And none of those 3 things will get us a job offer. It doesn't matter how great your resume is. Nobody's going to look at that and go like, make them an offer. That doesn't happen, right? Because we build modern web applications on teams. Those teams of people need to fit together. It is costly to hire a new person, and companies don't like to make bad decisions. So they go through 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds of interviews. I had one student who got a job offer off after their 7th round of interview with the same company. They just kept calling him back in, having another interview, meeting some more people, wanted to make sure it was a good fit. Um, you know, as a result, if the resume, if the LinkedIn, if the portfolio only exists to get you a phone call, what in those documents would catch somebody's eye and say, "Hey, let's give them a call." If it's a bunch of, again, tutorial work or class work that you did in your college or in your boot camp or whatever, and there's not an original piece in there, it's not going to catch anybody's eye, right? There are lots of tutorials teaching you how to build things all over the internet. And if there's a tutorial teaching you how to build the thing that you have in your portfolio, that doesn't prove you can do the job. That just proves you can follow instructions. You can read instructions and follow instructions. But if you're a developer, if you're a programmer, that's not what they're hiring you for. They're hiring you to solve original problems by confronting a blank page and typing on a keyboard and solving a problem with code, right? And the more you can prove that you're capable of doing that with your portfolio, in a way that also kind of catches their eyes and said, this is kind of professional quality work, you're more likely to be called in. Again, if you're doing the same thing over and over for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and you're not getting a response, we got to look at how we're marketing ourselves, right? When we're in the job search, we're selling a product. That product is us. How do you sell a product? You market it. You put it in front of people who want to buy it. And what do you put in front of them? Well, for most of us, it's that resume and LinkedIn first. The portfolio comes next. But what in your resume and in your portfolio and your LinkedIn is going to catch their eye and go like, oh, remember the person who is the tennis instructor, but also wrote this really cool application for managing students at a tennis instructor business or whatever, right? Like, that's the kind of thing that's going to catch somebody's eye and go like, hey, bring the tennis instructor in. Let's see what that's all about. Because at the end of the day, people want to work with interesting people. They spend a lot of time with them at work. And somebody who's come through a CS program, hasn't had very much life experience, but knows all the algorithms, doesn't necessarily make for a great conversationalist or working partner. This is one of those benefits that non-traditional career changers can have, is they've worked a whole career in another industry potentially, and that can be a benefit. It doesn't feel like it sometimes because you look at the job posting and you see all these things that you don't have in your resume, so it feels like you're lacking. But what you aren't lacking is oftentimes the thing that's going to catch somebody's eye and get a phone call. And again, that phone call is what our goal is. And then if you start getting a bunch of interviews and they're not giving you job offers, that's another clue. What's going on there, right? If you're being interviewed, how are those interviews going? Does it feel like a conversation? Does it feel like, you're connecting with people? When you walk away, do you feel like, I totally screwed that up? Or, I don't know, I think I got a shot at this, right? These are the things. These are the things we need to start iterating on and working on. Those first couple of job interviews, you're probably going to be tight. Your shoulders are going to be high. Your voice is going to be kind of constricted. You're going to have this air of desperation around you because you really need this job. Sometimes it just means going through a couple of those to relax a little bit and get over the I'm not sure what they're going to ask sort of anxiety. Once you get a couple of these under your belt, you start to hear some of the same questions over again. You get better at your answers. Again, you're more likely to relax and not come off as a weirdo in your interview. So, something to think about. How are we doing out there? Let's look at what's going on in the tech news. Saw this report of the Trump-Gaza song and video yesterday. I don't personally have a dog in the fight in the Palestine Gaza thing. It's on the other side of the world. I have some Jewish friends, but I am not Jewish. I don't have a whole lot of interest in. I've also lived long enough that I've seen president after president line up to try and get peace with them, and all to no avail. So, like at a certain point, I don't personally have again a lot of investment in. Oh, is this going to be the one? Is this how we're going to fix it? Because I've just had decades, literally decades now, of seeing people trying to fix this problem, and there's no lasting fix. So, um, you know, just background noise for me. The spy chic taking the AI world by storm. I don't know that. What's that all about? Stock market today. Nvidia announces financial results for fourth quarter and fiscal 2025. Revenue jump almost 80%. By all accounts, their stock is overvalued now based on the amount of money coming in, but looks like that's not going to slow down anytime soon. Let's see. Let me check on this one. Let's see. Fired federal workers. Federal jobs are precarious now. Here's where Americans can find stable work. You know, government jobs have always been pretty stable for a couple of reasons. One, they don't pay as well, and you don't join the federal workforce if you tend to be a career maximalist, trying to always get a little bit more money, get a little bit more whatever. Well, there's still ways to sort of grow within the governmental organization. It's generally, again, you could make more money in the private sector, so you don't find the people who are out just hustling, trying to make the most money, and that going into federal service or even state government service. But there's also the stability that comes with a lot of these federal and some state jobs are union jobs, and so you have this extra layer of stability that comes when being in a union, because the union's looking out, presumably a little bit farther in advance, working with the company to try and head off a lot of crazy layoffs and those kind of things. But it's a whole new era over there. They are clearing the decks, cleaning house. Palantir looks like it's been having a rough week. I did 2 years working for a defense contractor. Not Palantir kind of stuff, but this is 10 plus 15 years ago now. But all that stuff is very, it's all contract focused. Companies get a contract, they do really well, they start to get more contracts, and then they, mess up one, they start to get less contracts, and then mess up a few more, and then they're out of business. That kind of stuff happens in government subcontracting and contracting all the time. So that's interesting stuff. I saw these headlines yesterday about Google's secret update to scan all of your photos and how to stop it. I didn't read any of the reports yesterday, but I saw the headlines. What's that all about? What is that about? Let's see. Yeah, these kind of stories are why companies are very unsure about the future and have put a bit of a hiring freeze on it. It's like with stories like this making the headlines, Nazi adjacent Doge kids are overruling Secretary Strait. Like, I don't even have to read that article. All I have to do is see the headline and go like, man, what's going on here? Like, this doesn't sound like a bunch of stability that's gonna even keel, allow us to make some prognostication about what the future is looking like. And with uncertainty comes confusion and the the will to circle the wagons. Interesting. We might have an end to the Russia-Ukraine war at some point. Generally speaking, that's a good thing. How that happens and what the final result are is going to be debated for a long time, but generally less war is better. More stability is better. Oh, this crypto stuff. I do not follow the crypto stuff. I didn't see this stuff. Tuberville. Not a big fan of Tuberville, but Tuberville. Um, Pushes for a trigon instead of a pentagon. You know, generally speaking, I think most people understand that the military-industrial complex needs a paring back, but yeah, reducing the size of a pentagon probably not the way to do it. What else we got? How are we doing on time? Doing all right? 18 more minutes. How those job applications today? So what's your goal every day? How many do you want to get out every day? Put that in the chat. Let's talk about it. You want to get out 10 every day? Yeah, Texas is North Texas, well, West Texas, but it's north of us. It's got this measles outbreak. We had a kid die yesterday. A lot of this kind of stuff tends to pop up in small towns where, the anti-vax thing can kind of rush through, and of course, a lot of that is a delayed response. We've been hearing about this anti-vax stuff since really my kids were young, and I've got a 20-year-old. And it takes time for that kind of stuff to filter out and have an effect. If a bunch of people read an article and don't vaccinate their kids today, it'll probably be 10 or 12 years before that starts to bear fruit in terms of that. But we're probably going to see more of these. Texas, Texas, Texas. Texas is a weird state in that Austin has been the liberal bastion, but it's also the state capital. So you have this weird mixture of the governor who is not liberal, who doesn't like Austin, who doesn't like the way Austin's run. But we're also a huge driver. All these companies that are these tech companies that are moving to Texas, many of them have had offices in Austin and are continuing to grow their footprint in Texas, in part because, they come to South by Southwest, they see what's going on, and what they see is a, pretty straightforward liberal town, which if you're growing up on the West Coast, it feels a little bit more like home than if you were going to go to Dallas or Houston. So there's just some natural friction there. Cold front coming to Texas. Not really, but looks like we got a high of 65 today. 65, a little cooler than yesterday. I went for a walk. I was sweating yesterday. Maybe not as much today. Okay. Bill Gates reveals the must-read science fiction book for building mental strength and adaptability in life. What is that? I'm curious. That clickbait has got me baited. Stranger in a Strange Land. Yeah, I've read that Highland book back when I was a teenager. Might not be a bad time to revisit it. A Stranger in a Strange Land. A brilliant mind bender. Thought-provoking, says Kurt Vonnegut. Interesting. Scientists may have finally solved the mystery behind Mars' red color. Detection of ferrihydrite in Martian red dust records ancient cold and wet conditions on Mars. Mars rusted early. A new discovery writes in the Red Times history. Yeah, I was listening to this interview with Peter Diamandis, and he is he's an interesting fellow. In a place, he's the guy who created the X Prize, the original X Prize, and then that's spawned many other X Prizes. And he's been a big space nerd his whole life. And he is best friends with Elon and is very optimistic about a future. And he was talking about how he, because of Elon's newest rocket, the big heavy rocket, that Elon wants to get to Mars in 3 years, which seems very aggressive. And Elon is quick to make predictions that are way out of based on reality. We're still waiting for those self-driving cars that he promised us 10 years ago. But he said something that I've been thinking about since all these humanoid robots have come out. And that is, the first people to step on Mars won't be people, they'll be robots, right? These humanoid robots. His idea, and I'm sure it's because he's talking to Elon, is that they'll just start sending lots and lots of these robots, humanoid robots, up to Mars and the moon, because you don't have to pressurize the oxygen. Like, it's a lot cheaper to send a bunch of equipment to Mars than it is to send people. It's a lot less dangerous. And then once they're there, if they have the same form factor as human beings, and they can build, essentially around the clock, they can start building structures, preparing the whole area, digging and finding water, and preparing it for humans to show up, so that by the time humans do show up, there could be, dozens of structures, a whole colony built out, ready to go. And he's talking about that. It all seems very science fiction-y, but it makes the most sense. Definitely makes the most sense. We don't want to be sending one-way people to Mars and then having them die on the planet. That's not a good look if your goal is to populate the planet. So you want to de-risk as much as possible in an environment that is not really habitable by human beings. Interesting. How are we doing on time? 10 minutes, okay. TV. Don't watch a whole lot of TV. I watch a lot more YouTube than I watch TV. Yeah. Celebrities are dropping like flies. Michelle Trachtenberg yesterday. Today, we find out about Popeye Doyle. What is going on? We kind of know as it's coming out, like she had liver issues, she had a liver replacement. That's not a good place to be. You need your liver. Americans are struggling with this travel dilemma following the election. How Trump's sweeping new policies could change travel. How are shifting travel trends and Trump's impact reshaping destinations like Thailand, Italy, and the Caribbean? I have a friend who's moving to the Philippines. He's going to go live in the Philippines. He thinks that's a good idea. He spent 10 years living in China, so it's not like a total left field thing. But that is interesting. I'm curious about that. Not that I'm planning on going anywhere anytime soon. I again got a kid in college and another one about to be in college in the fall. So we're not headed anywhere anytime soon. But we are traveling more. We are finding destinations around the globe to visit. Meta scales back a major employee perk. Meta approves bonuses up to 200% of company salary executives as it trims stock awards for employees. Not giving out stock. They're giving out bonuses up to 200% of their salary. That's interesting. That's interesting. Americans filing for unemployment rises 242,000, the highest in 3 months. Jobless claims jump. Highest level this year. And those, we're going to see a bunch of federal workers out of work. We're going to see those numbers jump. There's no way around that. Elon Musk is trying to make sleep deprivation cool again. Yeah, sleep pods, pizzas, and Red Bull. How Doja staff are pulling off 120-hour weeks. Yeah, there's this crypto heist of $1.5 billion by North Korea. Why people think crypto is a good idea, I don't understand. Never gotten it. Let's see. How are we doing on time? Okay. We're getting down to the end. If you joined us late, we'll get the highlights again. This is Dev Jobs Daily. I provide a place for you to check in once a day, Monday through Friday, for an hour to listen to me talk about what's going on in tech while you are getting job applications out. The goal of this stream is really just to be a hangout for people who are looking for a job in tech, talk about things in tech and in the greater world. And I've been a professional developer for over 30 years. Currently, I manage a coding boot camp in Austin, Texas, and have been doing that for a number of years. I created this stream as a place for our students to come hang out, just to keep them motivated while they're in the job search, but clearly could be valuable to people other than them. So if you know anybody in the job search who's looking for work and needs that consistency, that accountability, that habit of getting up in the morning and getting those job applications out first thing, starting the day right with an action that's going to pay dividends. Please share this with them. I stream on YouTube, on Twitch, and on LinkedIn Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. And we're going to wrap it up. The last thing I want to do is plug an app that I have been working on. It is a app to find all the free things and fun things to do at South by Southwest, which is a conference in Austin, Texas that happens once a year during spring break, and it's coming up in a week and a half or so. And there are lots of free things to do that you don't need a badge for. Badges are very expensive, and there are people who still want to connect with human beings and see what interesting stuff is going on in tech in and around Austin, Texas. And if you want to know where and when they are, this free app will give you that information. There are over 100 events in it right now. That's going to balloon up to 200 plus by the end of the week. I've been diligently adding more and more events, so check that out. Please share this with anybody you know at South by Southwest that are going to come or partake in South by Southwest. It's great sitting behind a keyboard and getting job applications out every day. That's the bare minimum. That's the table stakes, right? But what's going to really move the needle? Potentially getting out and meeting people, connecting with people on LinkedIn, looking for opportunities, letting people know you're out in this work, you're in the job hunt, because you never know which one of those IRL connections is going to be somebody who can just walk you in and give you a warm introduction to a job. So come check it out. And again, it's a free app. It's at sxfreesw.com. That is southbyfreesouthwest.com. sxfreesw.com. Check it out. And I'm going to work on these colors. Ooh, that's hard to read. Just a little hacky side project I'm working on right now, but I got about a week and a half to kind of clean it up and make it better. So we'll be doing that. Okay, guys. We're going to be back tomorrow, Friday, at the end of the week. Finish the week strong in 23 hours. And in the meantime, and in between time, get those job applications out and get to work on that portfolio. These are the things that can move the needle for you. Focus on those things, the things you can control. Get your mindset right, and the luck will pop up. We'll keep an eye on it, and I'll be back tomorrow. So